Well, all these panelists have been through and undergone a strategic assessment, and they represent firms from the small associations, the medium, and the large associations. And as a reminder today, we're not talking about consultants, we're not talking about systems that we're using. What we're talking about is the process and the journey that these individuals have gone through in their association.
You know, our board was incredibly supportive. I think the biggest thing for us is it had been really a long time since we had made significant investments in technology other than kind of one-off. So the hardest thing for us was, well, what's the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem, admitting we had a problem to our board, and having them kind of accept that there truly was an issue, because we were doing a lot of things right. We were just doing them very inefficiently. And so we had to make the case that that perhaps our staffing levels were out of whack, because we were necessitating more individuals to get the processes done, because the systems themselves weren't enabling efficiency.
One of the biggest things, selling points to me for a strategic assessment, was that there was this data audit that came with it, and that was really, I felt, the best use of our members' resources that they had entrusted to us. We knew we needed to do something, but we needed to figure out what we had already in-house before we could make that next step. So that was really the biggest piece for us to move forward with an assessment, is what do we have now so we know what we need to move to next. So we have all this momentum, we need to fix this, what do we need to do to bring it all together, the technology, the processes, and then what can we do for our members. So
once the firm was selected, they sent us a whole big questionnaire to fill out, answering a bunch of questions. But then they did one-on-one interviews with our staff, and then we had 2 days, full staff. And at the time, everybody was like, really? 2 days? We all have to sit together and worth a consultant? It was a wonderful 2 days, because the questions they asked were simple questions for the most part, but the answers were what was amazing. For example, kind of what was said earlier is that someone would say, well, now, this is how I put the information in on each member in the database. And someone would say, well, that's not the way I do it. And you'd find that you had 5 different ways of doing it. So the processes were broken. We didn't have the right processes. So, that's just the way we got started. It was well spent time, and that's where we started.
A lot of the kickoff process was talking about mindsets to get all the team in, and not be pointing fingers at each other or at the systems, but really to say, okay, how do we remove some of these barriers to kind of meet our strategic goals and what our members are needing. So that was the big one.
We just asked the question of every employee, what do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it that way? Great point by Michelle. How would you like to do it? Just challenging people to think outside of how they do it currently, and how, in a perfect world, with the easy button, if you press that button, what would that process look like for you? As we got in and just kind of started cracking at the shell of their current processes, and people started thinking about, well, yeah, if I could do this that way, then it would free me up to do more of this. And what we realized was there were a lot of hidden frustrations under the surface. People didn't even know enough to be frustrated with the processes, but what they were frustrated with is that they didn't have enough time during their day to do this thing that is really, really important, or that they think is really important, but that the processes were taking up too much of their time to actually free them up to do that. And as people started to think about being relieved of those processes, then they started to get excited about being able to do the things that they thought would return more value to the organization and would ultimately make their job more fulfilling, because it's really what they wanted to do when they signed on for the role to begin with.
All of us in the room were just like, what? These things can talk to each other? And that was where they said, the spreadsheet hell that we were in, is because nothing talks. So you were exporting and importing and exporting, or just exporting and having different versions. So where they came to us and said, no, there's what the solutions they went to find were things that would allow us to do our processes and do them better and more, but also so that you can share data amongst each other.
And our organization was very siloed, and no one was encouraged. In fact, they were discouraged from working together. And I think when we brought everybody in a room and for the first time really asked their opinion on what we should do, what they wanted to do, what would be awesome if they could pull, in their dream world, what they could do. I think that just broke down some barriers, and it's created a culture change in our organization that's solidified now that we're all in this together. And I really think that was 2 days together. All it took was 2 days, but to really just to say, hey, I care about you, and I care about that you're frustrated, and I want to help you like your job better, and to be able to serve our members better without that frustration. And so I think really at the end of those 2 days, that was really, to this day, our assessment was almost a year ago, and still to this day, it's like, remember that conversation that we had, and that, when those people were here and they asked us all those questions, whatever happened with that? Or, hey, I had another idea with that. And I spend a lot of time listening to people now, and so they're talking to each other, and that's just really, it's really cool.
Well, there were so many aha moments, and I think one of them was the fact that we outsourced our IT work. We still do, but we were constantly having problems. The computers were breaking down, software, things just weren't working. And so through this process, this roadmap was given to us on things we could do to upgrade our database, move things to cloud storage, move to Office 365, do some different things with our servers. So there were so many things that we were able to have identified. Do these things, and you probably won't be breaking down as much. And that was the rainbow at the end of the path, is that we've had no problems at all since that time. And it used to be a monthly problem. Email's not working, such and such isn't working. And because of all these changes that were outlined in the strategic assessment, those were all taken care of, and things are really, really good.
What it all uncovered for me is that every employee has a strategic side if you can uncover it, and you can give them the opportunity to start thinking outside of the rote day-to-day activities that require them, enable them to do their job. And so I guess I wish I'd maybe been a little bit more prepared for how much it would open people up, because now I've got a lot of very strategic thinking employees who also really want to have their ideas implemented yesterday. And so people have new ideas all the time, and I like Michelle's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. I feel like I'm constantly reminding people, like, we're in stage 2 right now, and that's maybe a stage 6 type thing.
That's good. Tanessa, what do you wish you had known before you started down this process?
If you haven't been able to figure out, I was really worried about our data. Really, really, really worried about our data, and I wish that I would have. Yes, that was extremely important, but what else we got out of it? Just we kind of had we're able to start with a clean slate of these business processes are not working, so let's make new ones. The entire process was just so valuable, and like I said, our data audit was kind of anticlimactic for me because everything was fine, and so I was so focused on this over here that if I would have known just how beneficial the business process side was, not that I would have done anything different, but just going in with that perspective of how much this would change our organization and how much it would help us moving forward, I wouldn't have been so focused on one area, and really just could have prepared, I think, maybe our staff a little bit better for the whole big overarching goal.
In the grand scheme of things, with the way that technology is changing and there's so many new tools available to everybody, you need help with this, and it's the way that our customers are changing and their level of expectations or their schedules and inability to be the volunteer or the member that they were 5 years ago. That's changing. So I think this is even more vital. I came up through my career as a computer teacher and worked in universities and teaching computers, and technology has been part of who I am since I've been a kid. So it's normal for me, but now it's everything we touch is technology, and if you don't assess it properly and tie it into your processes, you're going to continuously have roadblocks or have frustrations with it. And that's something that I think this is key is, yeah, you can't afford not to do it, and it's going to save you time in the long run, but it's going to help you remove a lot of barriers and frustrations. That's been a common theme here today, as you're not only, we're executives at the association, but our teams are extremely frustrated, and they want to be able to do the best job they can do too. So,
Beth, what about you?
Yeah, the staff efficiencies. Having written processes that everyone follows. We found, for example, that when we had a staff turnover, they had not been putting anything in the database. Everything was kept on spreadsheets. And so now everybody follows the same protocols. We have everything written down in processes, and the staff efficiency is so much better.